Let's continue where we have stopped, inshallah. I believe we're at the topic on youth, which is at page 21, inshallah. Okay. Or 20, you can start at 20, of course. After the onset of puberty, the first stage of youth begins, a stage where energy is abundant and strength is continually increasing, which means that it is the stage most suited for winning rewards, doing good works, and avoiding sins and reprehensible acts. However, it is also a hazardous stage, of which one should be wary. For many or even most young people are inclined towards worldly desires and prefer immediate pleasures to decent action and observances. It is unusual to find a youth established in obedience. This is written during his time. Like I said, it is like Imam has said, not me. It is unusual to find a youth established in obedience and ephemeral pleasures. Established in obedience and longing for good works and neglectful of worldly desires and ephemeral pleasures. Now, Lord wonders at a young age, at a young man who shows no passion, gift. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam included among the 7 that God will shade with a shade on the day when no shades shall exist except his. A young man who grew up in the service of God. It has been related that God, the Exalted, said, O young man, who has abandoned his passions for my sake, you are to me as are some of my angels. MashaAllah. So this is a very important age, and this is the tarbiyah that we hope to give to our children, that something that they should inherit from us, that they should give to their children, inshallah. And it is about raising children. What do we instill first at this age? I will refer to a few works, inshallah, and later on, inshallah, after this, I'll summarize this according to Imam al-Ghazali, inshallah, on his nature of knowledge from Ihya. Yeah, so everything culminates at knowledge. How do we raise our children with ilm, not just taking care of our children with love, etc. So as parents, number one, of course, the challenge would be, that means as parents, we too need the knowledge. Yes, we need the knowledge. And if we do not have the knowledge or the capacity to learn, to bring our children to that level, then we need to find the people who have this knowledge. I repeat, the people, not the institution. Why people? Because the people whom that we know, they must be people who practice and live the knowledge. Whereas institutions can be people who run the institution, who teach the knowledge, but don't necessarily live the knowledge. This is at the end of the day, this tarbiyah that one's receive from people of knowledge is definitely going to leave a deeper imprint of taqwa onto our children than just an institution that drills the knowledge in. Now, and the method of leaving our children with the people of knowledge was the method that was done by Imam al-Ghazali's father, Muhammad ibn Muhammad al-Ghazali al-Tusi. So basically, Imam al-Ghazali's father, as we know from his life story, you can read this, and you can even watch a movie on it. It's been recorded, and it's on YouTube. It's called The Alchemy of Happiness, The Life of Imam al-Ghazali. It's like a documentary movie. It's very nicely done, well done, mashallah. So what happened is, his father passed away at a very young age. And father is someone who loves the ulama, who loves the Sufiya, and he would always be close with them. But he himself is not one. That means he is a muhibbin, a true muhibbin. So what happened is, then after he passed away, he left his two sons, Sayyidina Muhammad or Sayyidina Ahmad al-Ghazali, into the custodian of a very pious Sufi. And the Sufi then taught as much as he could. But after a while, he sent them to the madrasa, where they would receive food and care, nurturing, basically, and knowledge at the same time. And this led Imam al-Ghazali, rahmatullah alayhi, to have a very deep wanting for knowledge. So the seed was already planted from his father. Because basically, the parenting continues even after the passing of his father. And this is because knowledge continues. The ummah of the Prophet ﷺ is being parented with knowledge that we inherit from Sayyidina Rasul ﷺ. But if that is how the ummah is taken care of, then how do you think our children should be taken care of? Yeah? So Imam al-Ghazali, because of this, he had no option. He was put there because there is where he received his sustenance, he was taken care of. So he developed that love for knowledge, and later on they realized that Imam al-Ghazali was a very talented, mashallah, and he was like a prodigy, like one might say. So he covered knowledge at a young age with all of the ulama of his area and Tus, and then he continued his studies with Imam al-Haramain. Imam al-Haramain. Now, this is shabab, this is youth. Because Imam al-Ghazali, even after his return from his studies with Imam al-Haramain, he was only at the tender age of 32, which means ever since the passing of his father from 5 or 6, he continued to the age of 32, and he was given the highest seats of the Shafi'i school or even the Ahlul Sunnah school. And he, director of the Nizamiya Institute. So he was like the head of the Shafi'i and the Ash'ari school. Why? How did he become the head of the Ash'ari school? Because the knowledge that he inherited from Imam Haramain, Imam Haramain who inherited from his teacher, who inherited it from Imam Ash'ari, Musa al-Ash'ari himself. So there's a chain that goes back from Imam Ash'ari, that goes back from Imam al-Ghazali to Imam Ash'ari. Now this shows the nature and the strength of Imam al-Ghazali rahmatullah alayh, from having that proper tarbiyah, nurturing from the time that he was young boy until he became a shabab. So he's protected. Now, of course, we know about from his life story of Imam al-Ghazali, there is the time where he is then tested with the melancholy that occurred to him. And this is, of course, him realizing that he was depending on his knowledge and not depending on Allah. That is the second phase, which Imam Ghazali will talk about in his books. So, but that ability to handle that phase comes from the proper upbringing. So what we can see now in this day and age is that when we are able to raise our children properly, when they then achieve maturity, that doesn't mean safely, they will achieve their maturity safely. That does not mean that they will not face any problems while facing maturity. Now, by maturity, I do not just mean puberty. It's two different things. We have to be very clear about this. Having a child going through puberty is not the same as a child being mature. You get what I'm trying to say? It's two very opposite things. A child can go through puberty and yet still be not mature. An adult can go through the process of aging and still not be mature. Where does maturity happen? It happens within the heart and the ability to overcome the illnesses of the heart. And this Imam al-Ghazali, we will talk about this if we have time later, inshallah. So what Imam al-Haddad is trying to emphasize, later when we read, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is amazed at a youth that has no desires, not no desires, but they are not Hadith says, Allah, your Lord wonders at a young man who shows no passion. Not that he does not have any passion, but it is the ability of him, of course, the tawfiq from Allah, that of him overcoming and being able to be clear that this is nafsu, this is iman, this is nasiha, what should I follow? Which means his mind is already awakened, his heart is already awakened, and this is what Imam al-Ghazali has. You can have children who are at the end of their youth, 35 to 40. Yeah? So youth ends at about that age, according to Imam al-Ghazali as well, 35 to 40, and they're still not awakened. And that's actually very difficult because at that point of time, their desires and passions are already very strong. But the akal is not developed. The akal is not developed. And the way of the Sufiya, like I have mentioned, the way of dhikr, the way of tafakkur, the way of suluk, must begin early. In fact, as early as 4, 5, 7, we need to bring them to the act of dhikr so that it does not become what Malaysia kekok. It does not become awkward for them. So the ability to transit back into the ruh. Yani, we came from alam al-azal, we were born into the casual world through the womb of our mothers. There's a process back there. And then when we are born into this casual world, the body takes precedence. Yeah? And because of the desires, the ruh is hidden. But if we go back to the proper way of raising children, they will allow the ruh to guide, the heart to guide ourselves, not just the bodily self, which is the opposite today, because today's parenting is more about guiding the body, not guiding the ruh. And when we face problems or our children faces problems, we do not know how to handle them because most of our problems require a spiritual solution. Even if you were to ask me your financial problems, be it financial, be it all of your problems, there is a spiritual solution. But if we do not raise ourselves and our children properly, then they will not be able to find that spiritual solution or understand that the problems that they're having today is because of a spiritual problem. This goes from marriages to raising their own children, to being able to communicate with their own spouses, to being able to carry out work at their work, like normal work, handling affairs and relationships within work and community and people. All this requires actually the work of the parent. And if you might say, oh, this is going to take a lot of my time because I have to work, etc., then what are you sacrificing for? What is being sacrificed? And if we don't take care of this now, it will come back to us later. So that's why if we look at the mashayikh, they take care of their students like their own children. Because of this, the only way for their students, and this is of course not all teachers, there are difference between the teacher and the guide. So what Imam al-Ghazali had were teachers, then he had his guide as well. What Imam al-Haddad had were also his teachers, but also he had his own guide, Abu Umar ibn Abdul Rahman al-Attas, and many other habaibs of his time. So this tarbiyah, this raising up of a child now, comes in the form of knowledge. That means the parent, the teacher takes the knowledge and uses this to inculcate maturity in the child. And this we see in the example of the Quran from Sayyidina Luqman al-Hakim, where how he nasihats his children, his son, to be having faith in Allah, to be having a life of worship, etc., etc. All of the nasihat of Luqman al-Hakim, Sayyidina Luqman al-Hakim, alayhi salam. as mentioned in the Quran. So in fact, that is the asas of parenting, from Sayyidina Luqman al-Hakim. And this is what ulama then take, and then they expand it, and then they take it, and then they change. And that's how even non-blood relations, non-blood relations, but if you have the relationship with your teacher, and your teacher becomes your abuya, your father, or for some becomes your mother, but usually is the case, it is the father. Why? Why? So in this day and age, this becomes another problem. Why must it be father? Why can't it be mother, etc., etc.? Because we live in a time of madrasa abawiyah is missing the madrasa of the fathers, which is the madrasa of nubuwa. So of course, there can be female teachers, etc. But this madrasa abawiyah is something that we need to inherit back and that we get from our mashayikh who are teachers, who are guides, not just teachers. And if you put this abawiya and you put it becomes known, and it's actually to oppose the madrasa of anawiya, the madrasa of anawiya, which is the madrasa of today's secular world. So what is very important is that we find, understand, we have to relook at parenting. It's not just nurturing, taking care. No, it is actually tarbiyah, giving knowledge to your child. How do you educate your own child Islamically with moral values, etc., and then allow them basically to walk on the path of being an awliya Allah. Oh, that's so tall. I'm not a wali yet. I mean, we can never confirm who we are, but at least we must strive to be on that path. And that's most important, inshallah. So, I'm going to read a bit from Habib Omar's book, the clarification of noble character. He says, the secret law of Islam stresses that Muslims must concern themselves with proper upbringing of their children. The key to raising children well is for the parents to realize that their offspring are trusts in their care, and they must honor that trust by raising them a way that is pleasing to their Lord. Like I've mentioned before, the best way to raise our children is to make them walk on the path of Ilahi anta al-maqsudi wa ridaka matlubi. This dua. Ilahi anta al-maqsudi wa ridaka matlubi. Which we can find in the way of the awliya Allah Salihin, which is connected to the way of the prophets. They must know that by failing to do so, their wealth, spouses, and children turns into enemies and becomes a trial for them. So this is for the fathers, and if they don't take care, even for the mothers, if they don't take care, the parents don't take care of this, then it will return back to them in a very they become enemies for us lah. And then Habib Umar quotes from the Holy Quran. He says, "O believers, among your spouses and your children are enemies for you, so beware of them. If you overlook their wrongs and forgive and pardon them, then know that Allah is forgiving and merciful." He also says this in another verse, "It is not your wealth nor your children that will bring you nearer to us, yani Allah in degree, except in the case of he who believes and does good work." So Surah Sabah 34-38. The wealth of those that believe and do good deeds is a means for them to draw near to Allah, because they spend their wealth in its proper place. Likewise, their children are a means for them to draw near because they raise them in a way which Allah has ordained. So our children also becomes a way that we be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when, we have children who read Quran and they, not just reading Quran, but they strive to learn Quran, right? Learn the way of the Prophet ﷺ, the way of the awliya Allah Salihin. Then the barakah will come into our life, even as parents. There will be barakah. There will be barakah, and it will make our lives, even though we might not be rich, etc., but we are taken care of. And this is because why? You're raising someone that is taking care of his or her deen. That's most important. You're raising someone that is taking care of his or her deed. And this is also important for teachers to understand this. And they to get the rewards when they raise their students, the muridins, to be people who are Allah who's rida with, inshallah. The reward for the good deeds. The reward for the good deeds which people perform continues to reach souls of their parents after they've passed away. So there was once talking about, I know, because the next part will be about the afterlife. So it's one or two stories which are relating back, because if not, it becomes a parenting class like that. So there was a person, this lady, she passed away, and her daughter buried her, etc., done the burial. The daughter dreamt of her, and daughter asked, how's your life? Mother said, funny, I have not received. I didn't see the angels. No one came knocking. No one questioned me. I've been waiting for a few days now. And then the daughter said, then what happened? So what happened was I just decided to just, push the wall. And when the wall came down, I saw Jannah, she said. Well, I thought it would be Jannah because no one came. I just walked into that place and I saw a group of people, and it's a beautiful place. I asked, where is this? Because I did not receive any knocking, no questioning. And then the people there looked at her and says, well, you have passed away. And this is the Jannah of people who enter Jannah without hisab. This is the Jannah for people who enter heaven without hisab, because the wall just goes away. So next time, if you're already there in Barzakh and no one comes, try and push the wall down. Try and push the wall down. Maybe you have been given that. Don't have to wait for hours. But the child, you see, through this we understand that the child is able to still have that interaction with the mother. And this comes from mahabbah and love, and because of what the child had inherited from her mother as well. That lifestyle of purity, the lifestyle of goodness, the lifestyle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is what that makes that connection still continues. Like a few days ago, how I was talking about the connection between Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam and his father Sayyidina Yaqub. And even at that point of time, how his father is able to appear and hit on his chest and tell Sayyidina Yusuf to move back. So these are great examples of how spiritual works are able to connect, bind father and children, children and father, mother and children, children and mothers. This is a great dalil, and something which is clearly missing in our communities in this day and age. And we're more concerned about the children inheriting our wealth. And if our wealth are going to be around, if not, then what's going to be left of us? Yeah? Therefore, it is extremely important for a Muslim to concern himself with the good character of his wife and the good upbringing of his children. The integrity of the family rests upon these good qualities, as does the integrity of society, and in turn, the integrity of the state. And like a few days ago, I was sharing about how narcissism is taking charge of parenting, and our children are exposed to such things in this day and age, and that's why it's going to be very dangerous for us. So may Allah protect us. Parents are obliged to nurture not just their children's bodies, but also their souls. This is what I've been trying to say these past few days. They are obliged to attach their hearts to the religion of their Lord, so that they will end up being the delight of their eyes in the day on which Allah resurrects His creation. Allah says in His description of His righteous servants, they are, from the Quran, those who say, our Lord, grant us of our wives offspring and the delights of our eyes, and to make us an example of the God-fearing. Surah Al-Furqan 25:74. This can only be achieved if man gives his children good upbringing and concerns himself with the good character of his wife. So This is something that will be a adornment on the day of judgment when we meet Allah, is that how our children and our wives, they inherit this good character. So the imam of the family is very important, the man in the family, and the role of the male in the family uh, is currently, I mean, constantly in the time where it is being questioned, um, it is being sidelined in the in the in the idea of equality, whatever that means. Because in Islam, it's not about equality, but it is about responsibility. It's two different things. And if the man is not responsible, then he will have to carry that burden. May Allah protect us. So that's why it's really important that the man understands responsibility. That comes with maturity, spiritual maturity. Right? The starting point in raising children is to have good intentions concerning them, a wish for them to become close to Allah. You must wish that your children becomes close to Allah. I mean, you want to wish they become NASA scientists and they become the next master chef ke, apa lagi? The next BMW racer ke, tu up to you lah. But the core of the parenting is to make them be close to Allah. And that's what all sheikhs or guides would have the intention for their students. They want them all to be close to Allah. Okay? To be among those who uphold his religion and to be among his righteous servants. Because a child's attachment to religion should begin even before his birth. And this is summarizing a lot of what we've been talking this past few days. There are some men who think only of worldly matters when they learn of their wife's pregnancy. The child will bring in good income, we will find him a good job so that our provision will be plentiful, or he will be a source of pride and status for us. There are others, however, who envisage their children being obedient to Allah so that they receive the rewards of their obedience. They imagine them being upright and firm on Allah's path and thus being a cause for them receiving Allah's mercy, preparing them for a place in Jannah and being the delight of their eyes in the hereafter. This, of course, what we want is the second one, that our children will do good deeds and help uphold the religion. And because of that, we too receive that barakah and that reward في الدنيا والآخرة. في الدنيا والآخرة. And we're not just talking about being influencer, no. In this day and age, well, I'm doing good. I'm an influencer. Depends, difficult to say this day and age. But what Habib is talking about is actually having teaching your children how they should guard themselves with knowledge. That's most important. And scholarship in Islam. So, and this we can only learn from the scholars who have proper institution, not just any institution. Well, I've sent my children to weekend madrasas, and that covers just the very basic. We cannot expect the weekend madrasas to do wonders, because what happened to the daily madrasas that is happening at home? So it's really important that we also bring back the madrasa fil bayt, the madrasa at home. And the imam is none other, it has to be the father. So the father would nurture and in guiding them, teaching them, and then the mother will also bring the other aspect of bringing out the care, etc. There's that balance, that wasat that we need in our homes in this day and age, so that our children comes out balanced. And so it is something which is prevalent once in traditional Islamic society and community, but it is missing now. So we hear a lot of scholars who receive a lot just from their fathers. Like they can be memorizing Riyadh al-Salihin, memorizing Quran, etc. with their fathers, without having to leave their homes. And the fathers will send them to write scholars, to learn, etc. And this is something that we should be doing. It's not just I send him or her to madrasah. Dah bisa dah, okay. Tak boleh macam itulah. Because it's not parenting. It's just part of it. Right? The intentions with which children are raised have big effect. The Prophet ﷺ says, marry a woman who will bear many children, and one who will be a loving wife, because your number will be a source of pride to me in front of the others in the day of judgment. In this hadith, there is an indication that the person's intention on getting married should be that he will have children who will increase the number of those who reach the pool, the hawd, eh, of the Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa ashabihi wa baraka wa sallam. So that they may also be a source of pride too, sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa baraka wa sallam. So we're raising children that would have this attachment with Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Just now I was at the bookstore, Geylang. Actually, I found this book which I thought would be very interesting. يعني من راح رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في النوم واليقظ يقظ يعني who have seen the Prophet صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وبركاته, those who have seen the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم the known in their sleep and in their wake, يستغيث. And so and then in it, this is from Muhyiddin al-Tumi, Ta'alif Muhyiddin Tumi. A very interesting book that talks about the instances of the great mashayikh, great people who have met the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is even categorized according to alphabets. يعني إبراهيم صالح الحسيني التجاني إبراهيم بن علي بن يوسف الفيروزي فيروز بادي. These are all great scholars. Fairoz Badi has his own tafsir. الخاني القاني ابن زباخ Abu Bakr Sirajuddin Ali and Musa al-Hamuli. And these are all great scholars, and how they have met Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Sultan of Morocco, Abu Annan, and then Al-Qutb al-Maktoum, Ahmad Tijani. Ahmad Tijani himself has about 120. Big bulk of it is his, mashallah. Let me see. MashaAllah, there's about 100 instances, narrations on how Shaykh Ahmad Tijani has met the Prophet ﷺ, Ahmad bin Yusuf al-Malini, Abbas al-Sinhaji, Ahmad ibn Mizani, Abu Bakr al-Barkuzi, Ahmad bin Hussein. The list goes on of the people who has met Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, al-Fasi. There's so many, mashallah. Just wanted to share. So this is how then, of course, the book talks a bit about it. Did they meet the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? But we also wonder what their upbringing would be like. You see, so it is important to not just look at the karamat of the people, but what we need to learn is how their upbringing was. And like I have mentioned, the upbringing of Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, Qaddasallahu Aziz, how he starts with zuhud, and taqwa, and ibadah, and taqwa. These are all important things, the three things that the mother of the Shaykh taught him. And so zuhud, ibadah, wa taqwa. These are very integral for shabab, for raising children. Okay. The intention is to make them proud of, to make the Prophet ﷺ proud of our children. That's the most important thing. May we be those children, inshallah, and may our children be those children as well, inshallah. I mean, look at the beauty of this intention, which should be in the heart of someone who is thinking about getting married. So it's not about getting married, how the person looks like, it's about getting married because can this person bring me, be in that sense, we raise children that the Prophet will be proud of. That's what we want. And if we see that the person is the prophetic light, go ahead. Because everything else cannot guarantee that a good marriage. But only this can guarantee a good marriage when both of them, the husband, the would-be husband and wife, have this in their minds. Eh? This shows again how great a teacher and nurturer of the Prophet ﷺ was. Eh? In another hadith, he ﷺ said, marry and increase because your numbers will be a source of pride to me in front of other nations in the day of the judgment. Along with this intention, he also taught us to give the call of prayer in the newborn's right ear and the call to commence on the left ear. This is what he did with us, our Shabab al-Jannah, Sayyidina Hassan, Sayyidina Hussein, when Sayyidina Fatima al-Batul, al-Zahra, radiallahu anha, gave birth to them. The Prophet ﷺ established this practice so that the first thing in the world which reaches the newborn's baby is the words of Allah, most great. And then they bear witness. There is no Prophet ﷺ, that there is no God except for Allah, and Rasul ﷺ is the Prophet. The baby hears the word Allah and the name of his messenger, and he hears veneration for things which Allah has made sacred in the words, come to prayer, come to success. So this being the first thing that we teach our children. Right? So the children attachment, the religion is enforced by feeding it only completely lawful food. This is another thing, I think, in this hipster age that we live in. Tak tahu apalah kita budak-budak muda ni makan. So when they eat all these, fake cheese and whatever not that they're eating, it makes their hormones go wild. Get what I'm trying to say? The food that you eat will have an effect on the way that you behave. It has an effect on the way that the body works. It has an effect on what the mind thinks. And we are all, including myself, living in here in this place, we're all affected by this culture of just eating and eating and eating. So much so that it's just ridiculous. And the type of food that we are eating is just more and more becoming more and more polluted. So it's not just the pollution in the air, pollution in the water, everything. So this causes children to think differently. It affects their mind, affects their mood, affects their heart. And it is really important that we try to take care of what we feed our children. It's not just the source of income is one thing, but the source, the physical source of the food itself, that is so important. Just this day, this month, Ramadan, there was once, we had no option left. My wife was not well, so we couldn't cook. So we couldn't get much food. The quickest we could get was actually McDonald's, so we succumbed to it. And wallahi, that was the day that was the most difficult to do tarawih. Tak tahu apa si clown tu dah baca kat dalam. You get what I'm trying to say? So it is really just what we eat makes so much difference. And we've seen how food that is so blessed can give us energy to perform even more prayers. So it's not the satiety, whether we're full or not. It is the barakah of the food. And that is something that is most important. And many stories of ulama and awliya, how they take care of their. I mean, the father of the awliya are very meticulous of what goes into the mouth of their sons and their daughters. And this in turn creates them to be great people and great contributors to the community. So if we keep feeding ourselves McDonald's, we keep losing our tarawih, that means that something is wrong with that food, wallahi. May Allah protect us. If we understand two things from this incident. The month of Ramadan is purifying for us. It's so purifying. The power is so intense. This fasting that we're doing is so intense. Very, very strong way of purifying us. That even when you eat something which is makruh, because it is served by non-Muslims, etc., it is makruh, it affects the iman of the fact that the fasting is created within us. It affects the iman and that the fasting is created within us. So we just dampen it with the dunya. So really it was interesting. It's the fasting is like a time that you can actually observe the effects of sinning on the self, the effects of eating food which is يعني, not doesn't increase the iman. It is halal, but does it increase the faith? I mean, imagine if McDonald's was not halal, will be safe from this kind of food lah. So maybe it is not important that everything becomes halal, but that halal remains something which is sacred, the food, and not to be capitalized by capitalists, and then it becomes something which destroys us in our iman. Yeah, so we take care of our food, inshallah. One of the righteous people of the past used to make it a condition on his wife or his children's witness that they would only breastfeed them when they are remembering Allah, so that the children would absorb the effect of Allah's remembrance with the milk and the illumination that goes with it. Yeah, so while breastfeeding the child, make sure that their wives are making zikrullah, salawat on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Parents should also choose good names. This is another thing which is greatly missing in this day and age. The etiquette of choosing good names. And, this will reflect the child as they grow up. And so, us as a practice in our family that we ask our guides, our sheikhs to name our children. It's usually like that, and Allah knows best. My grandfather does istikhara bil Quran for myself. So what he did was, when I was given birth to, then he would pray to rak'at. First name that he sees in the Quran, that's what, after he prays to rak'at, he opens the Quran. And the first name that he sees is the name that he'll name me. The name that came out was Muhsin. And that's how I received the name Muhsin. All of my siblings were named with that method as well. Yeah? So hopefully it is a dua that he has made for us as well to our names, inshallah. Rather, they should choose the names of the prophets or righteous servants of Allah. Among the best are those names derived from the root word of abd, meaning worship and servitude, such as Abdullah. That's the best name, the slave of Allah. Or Abdul Rahman, the slave of the most gracious. Abdul Rahim, the slave of the most merciful. Or Abdul Karim, the slave of the most generous. Or from the root word hamd, meaning praise, such as Muhammad, the possessor of abundant praiseworthy qualities. Or Ahmad, the one who praises Allah the most. Hamid, the praiser. And Mahmud, the praised one. The names which the Messenger of Allah وسلم, chooses for his sons and daughters are also excellent, as are the names chosen by his grandchildren and progeny. Parents must choose good names for the children, as it is one of the rights a child has over its parents. Yeah? So it is the child's heart rights on us. They need to give them names which are good. Okay? Parents must care for their children properly as they grow up. Before age of 7, children should become attached to the prayer and the other religious duties, which makes up the 5 pillars of Islam. So this is another thing which is most important. Before 7, sebenarnya they must already be practicing it. They must already know their small surahs of Ikhlas, etc. Yeah? The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Command your children to perform the prayer when they are 7 years old, and strike them for neglecting it when they reach 10." Yeah? Which means there must be some form of warning. Strike them. Not bantai lah. Just ingatkan. Just like do like that, stepping, waking them up. Why? Because that is actually nafsu, which we will read later. So if this nafs is not curbed, it is not tamed, then they will grow up becoming people who will go against the religion of Allah and the Prophet ﷺ and would be earning their wrath. May Allah protect us. Yeah? So it is important that they are constantly around such environment that increases their worship towards Allah. Yeah. I mean, today we want our children to be around environment which is good. By good, we mean, oh look, they are the top class, they're only the top in the class, top 5% in the school. Go and hang out with them. Okay, you hang out with them, but their akhlaq is not necessarily good. They can be good in their studies, but they can be going to places where they do ma'siyat, or they gather just to do ma'siyat, which is now the trend that's prevalent in institutions, that people gather to do ma'siyat. Billah. I've personally heard of some cases like this. It's just the things that the youth go through today is just ridiculous. So yeah, they can be the top in the school, but they can be the worst in terms of tabi'at, in terms of character. So make sure that our children are children who will be protected with the deen of Islam, with its practices, with its community, with its remembrance, and even for ourselves. The parents commanding their children to pray at the age of 7 assumes that they have already taught them how to pray before they reach that age, so that they are commanding them to do something which they are familiar. Then they must discipline them if they neglect the prayer from the age of 10. If the parents fail to enforce this and allow the prayer to be neglected, they have committed a sin. No, sir. I want the parents. Allah protect us. This is because the greatness of the prayer, which is one of the pillars of Allah's religion. It is like a rope that connects the slave to Allah. Whoever severs this rope has cut himself off from Allah's mercy. The Prophet ﷺ said, the bond which is between us and them is the prayer. Furthermore, parents must ensure that their children have a good education. They must choose righteous teachers for them. This is most important. Righteous teachers. This is what I've been stressing. This is what the same thing Hamid is saying. They must have teachers who practice the deen, not institutions. Unless the teacher has an institution and you know that he's running it well, okay, fine, khair. But if not, what can the institution do? It becomes a mass market thing. It's not that. We need to find teachers who can give tarbiyah to our children. They must also choose good companions for themselves and keep away from the bad company. This is most important. And this is the most important thing. May Allah grant our children good company and ourselves as well. As far as possible, they should monitor their speech and actions and give them guidance and direction. So, aqwal, what are they saying? Af'al, we have to monitor them. You are their sheikh. Their children will then be the delight of their eyes, righteous and beneficial members of society, at whose hands much good will be done. They will also be a cause for them to draw near to Allah and for their rewards to be increased. I mean, for their ajr. Yeah? May Allah brings us closer to Him, bless our children, and help us to give them the best upbringing, for truly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most generous, the most merciful. Blessing, may the blessings and peace of Allah be upon our Master Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family and companions. All praises be to Allah, Lord of the worlds. This is taken from Habib Omar's book. You need a clarification of noble character. Yeah. The Arabic of it is I can't find the Arabic title, but it is something which is widely read as well. In fact, in Arabic, yeah. So it's a good book, mashallah. Important book that talks about noble character. Coming back, let's finish this step up a bit. Hence, young people should be very careful to protect themselves against being dragged into God's wrath and painful chastisement simply by their youthfulness. So don't allow this young, youthful rage that exists within us to bring us or to earn us the wrath of Allah. And as parents, we have that responsibility, like I have explained in the past half an hour or so. And then instead make it a means to, and a ladder leading up to goodness and pleasure and His tremendous reward. Let them remember the advice of God's messenger, upon whom blessings and peace, wasallam, for he has more compassion and solicitude for us than ourselves, our father and our mothers. He said, seize the opportunity to make use of five things before five things. Right? The five before five. Your youth before you grow old. Your health before you fall sick. Your leisure before you are occupied. Your wealth before you grow poor. And your life before your death. So the five before five. And we must make sure that this hadith reaches our children at a young age. And not that they have to discover this hadith on their own when it is already too late. So this nasiha from Rasul Sallallahu this nasiha from all of our great imam are important, and they must reach our children at an early age so that they would benefit from this and that their life will be guided with it. It's not just simply teaching them prayer, but it is wanting them to have the good nature and the closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Until, okay. And he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the feet of a servant will not move away from where he stands on the day of rising until he is asked about five things: his life and how he expended it, his youth and in what he exhausted it, his wealth and where he obtained it, and on what he spent it. So these are the things. So one of the things that will be questioned is our youth. What do you do when you were young? To make sure that we start young, and that we guide and we channel our children to be doing this, to walk on the path of tasawwuf, path of tariqah, the path of knowing themselves at a young age, because it will benefit them. Youth is the time when acquiring merits, knowledge, and attaining to positions of righteous leaderships are eminence, and eminence are possible. So it is during our shabab, our time of youth is the time that we get knowledge. This is the time that we must go and seek the knowledge of the deen. This is the time that we must go be doing all of our sunnahs and all of our prayers. This is the time in youth is that we try to excel so much in doing good deeds. And we try to cover this before 40. Do as much as you can, right before 40. Because once you reach 40, life will take a different tone. Life will take a different tone. And you cannot be doing that again. It's difficult. We need to start this early as we can. Yeah? And like I said, it is sitting with the right people, not just the institution. The institution can be teaching you, but if sitting with the right person, you absorb those qualities. And that's what we want. Yeah? If a youth has nothing to boast of when he reaches 20 years, he'll never have anything to boast of. Another declared, if you do not prevail in the nights of youth, then what? Then you shall never prevail, though you live long. In most of your life, other than youth, take what you can from it and neglect it not. Any your night is supposed to be spent in prayer. That's what he meant. The nights are supposed to be spent in seeking knowledge, in learning. Because if you can't do it when you're in your time of youth, then how or what makes you think that you'll be able to do it in the time that you are old? And so it is something, actually our youth can do it. We just need to remind them. They just need to be guided. They just need to be exposed to things which are khair. And people who are khair as well. And through that, inshallah, they will realize how valuable the life that they have right now is, and how they can make full use of it. Like I've mentioned before, tariqah is a lifestyle that we lead. It is not just a path. It is a lifestyle. Yeah? Those of our righteous predecessors who lived along in the way of Allah and in His obedience used to urge young people to seize the chance offered by their youth, saying, use your youth before it becomes like us, old, feeble, and too weak to perform many acts of goodness. They say this even though, despite their circumstance, they were outstripping youngsters in striving for God and in zeal, in determination in His obedience. Subhanallah. And these are the people like Imam al-Haddad has mentioned, these people who advise the youth. They are more advanced in their spiritual uh, yani suluk, wayfaring, than the youth that they are advising. And imagine if they had the strength of the youth, how much more they would be going. One of the things that the greatest risky that we have is actually life. And life we only live once. So the people who are dead, they says, if only, in the hadith, it says, if only I'm given a chance to live one more day, that one more day I will recite Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. That means he wants to just live, to just say that, even if he gets that, that's enough. If he can do more. So why do we have to wait until we are dead? The people who are dead are envious of us. The people who are dead are envious of us. But we're not rushing to be performing good deeds. We're not rushing to be performing, to be going for majalis of goodness. We're not rushing for this. Why? Because we feel that we can live forever. Right? So today marks the 52nd Urus of our great grand Sheikh, Khaja Habibullah Shah. He passed away on the 11th of Ramadan. And like I was saying, Ramadan, for people who are fasting, there's two farhain, two happiness. Farhatain, one is when they do iftar, and another is when they meet Allah. So imagine for Khaja Habibullah Shah, he passed away in the state of fasting, mashallah, and he at the same time he gets to do his iftar with Allah because he's going to meet him. And not only that, it is in the month of Ramadan where the ajr, all of the goodness is increased to multifold. So he's in a state that he is taking care, he's preserving his nafsu, etc., etc. Everything is increased. The rewards are multifold. So it is rugi if we don't attach ourselves to such people or even attend their majlis. It's only once a year, right? So we should remember if there's the whole of Habib Noor we should attend and we would benefit from them. It's only once a year. We should make time because we are going to be there in the next destination. And that is our next destination. So because of that, we should, attach ourselves, walk on the path, especially at this young age. So when we enter there, when we enter Alam Barzakh, these people that we celebrate their lives, they know, they will remember us because of our du'as for them, although we have never met them physically. They will know us because of our du'as for them. And because of that, we won't be alone in Alam al-Barzakh, but we'll be with these righteous people, inshallah. So, khair, inshallah. I believe I've spoken much. Right? So, thank you all of you for tuning in. Inshallah, there will be class tomorrow as well. So, I hope to see all of you tomorrow, inshallah. If you'd like to support us, you can do so via our PayNow number, which is 86682295. 86682295. So, inshallah, all the videos will be uploaded. If you found it beneficial, do share it around. And do follow us on IG as well to be updated on all of our different majalis and also all of the different classes that goes on. Hope to see all of you soon. All goodness from Allah. Whatever is known from my own self, they will meet again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.